Hey, everybody. Welcome to
Transparent
Thursdays.
Thursdays. I thought we were gonna say transparent with the Townsends.
No, I mean, we could have.
I almost did. Hi everyone.
Hey.
I hope we're alive and I hope you hear us and I hope you're having a great Thursday. And I hope you're ready to tune in and listen to us talk for the next 30 minutes.
Yes. 30 minutes.
Maybe not 30 minutes. I don't know. As you can tell, we're both like a bit nasally and have a little, I don't know, what is it, congestion?
It is congestion. We are half sick.
Yeah. But we showed up.
I don't know if half sick is actually the right word.
You were fully blown sick this morning. Full blown sick.
I was hacking.
Oh gosh. Last night was troublesome. But anyway, we made it.
Lord made me get
The
through it.
Lord has blessed us. We are alive. And what are we talking about today? Or do you want me to let you do your thing?
Sure, I'm just taking a second just to get everything shared to everybody. But so our topic today is we have a question, and we're gonna be answering that question as best we can based off our experience, which is do we have, or do people in general have unrealistic expectations for marriage?
Yeah. I feel like you're kind of whispering. Do you feel as if you're
I
whispering?
probably am. I probably need to talk louder.
Yeah.
Hopefully that comes through a whole lot better now. Do we have unrealistic expectations for marriage? Is the question.
Yeah. Do people, I guess.
Yes.
Or maybe just society, or maybe just do Christians have unrealistic expectations for marriage? So that's what we're talking about today. That's our topic. What do you think about our topic? Why are we talking about this?
Well, I think it's important that we talk about it because if we don't talk about it, then people are just going to keep falling back into the same, like, I think it's okay. So there's a scripture, it's like hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I think it's like when you have hope for something and it never comes
Are you still
about,
talking low? Or
it never comes about, then the actual hope is going to cause you to feel sick about things, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of similar to the fact that I think some people are kind of preach the message of the gospel that once they get saved and they follow Jesus, everything's going to be perfect. They're going to get wealthy. They're going to be well. Everything's going to be great. So then when persecution and hardship and all the other things happen, then they're upset because the hope that they had for their actual walk with Jesus, their relationship with Jesus, was not what they were told or that they were expecting to have. And so I think it's really important that we have realistic expectations because Jesus gave us realistic expectations about the walk we would have with him. Because he said, if you follow me, you will get these things, but you will also have persecution and troubles and trials in this lifetime.
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
But take hope because I've overcome the world. So he gives you both the bad and the good. And I think he sets a strong, realistic expectation for what you can expect going into that relationship with him. And so I think it's important that we have a realistic expectation on what it means to get married and what we'll be walking into in that marriage.
That's great. Do you feel like, and I don't think we discussed this to talk about, but do you feel like people were honest with you about what marriage was like before you got married as a single person?
I don't feel like I was given a lot of conversations about it, or even like kind of like I did not have long sit downs with people about marriage. So,
like we're doing right now.
So for me, I think one of the biggest things was like observation, like paying attention to the people around me and how their actual relationships work together. How I watched people in the church. I watched people in my family. I watched people just that I came in contact with through work or through different things. Like, okay, how does this marriage thing work for these people? And then of course, you read things in the Bible, but I wasn't really a heavy Bible reader before the last 2 or 3 years. So for me, it's kind of like Bible stories. And so in the midst of that, I didn't really have like a strong reference on what that actually meant. And as far as like expectations, like God sets up for marriage, until recently. So, yeah, observation really, it was kind of the best teacher for me. And I don't know if that was really the best, honestly. Oh, and movies and TV.
Oh, unfortunately,
Yes.
that's not the
It's
best
not a great
representation at
teacher
all.
No.
I think we talk about that in our Lives About Sex series.
We do.
If you watch movies and TV and you get your expectations from that on what marriage and sex is about, then you will be surely disappointed and devastated when you realize, oh, that's not reality. Those people were lying or they were embellishing, I think.
Right.
Yeah, that was all an illusion. So, yeah. What were your expectations? As a single person,
before I got married.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a high hope for marriage. So I guess when I say that, my thought process was that when I looked at a lot of people's marriage, I saw like them being happy and joyful and really having good things. I mean, there were some examples I saw of people who weren't really happy and they got divorced and different stuff like that or issues. But like for me, majority of the people I saw had happy marriages. So for me, I looked at
Were your parents in there somewhere?
my
Looking
parents
at
were a very
them?
happy marriage.
Okay.
They did a good job of communicating with each other. And so they were a good I guess expectation or a good bar for that. But I think for me, because I came from a background where I went through a lot of trials and trauma when I was younger, it kind of set the bar for me to be like, marriage will help me feel loved. It'll help me feel better. So what happened was I kind of set marriage at such a high expectation and such a high goal that I kind of like was willing to sacrifice and do different things I probably shouldn't have done in order to get married. Where I ignored red signs like
Red flags.
red flags, yes. Red flags on why I like. 'Cause I tried to get married to somebody else before, or I wanted to, and then things just yeah didn't go the way it needed to go, and I ended up going down a road that led to a lot of I don't say abuse, but I guess a lot of
Unnecessary drama.
unnecessary drama and trauma that allowed that led to me being into a depression for a couple of years, which God used that to build me up because what happened was he said, okay, cool, you're gonna go down this route. All right, cool, this is what happened. You're gonna get torn down in the process. And in the process of you being broken, because I was broken not by God, by the actual circumstances
Mm-hmm.
and the people involved in the circumstances, a whole bunch of people involved in that circumstance. And so that broke me down as a person to the point where I'm gonna talk about this in our newest video about how I didn't want to live anymore. And so in the midst of that, he remolded me and shaped me from my broken state to allow me to be rebuilt as the man I need to be. And so he's like, okay, cool. If you're gonna ignore me in the midst of all this, I'm gonna allow you to get what you want. I know it's gonna end up you being broken, but I'm gonna take those broken pieces and I'm gonna help mold you and shape you to be someone who can actually have realistic expectations walking into a marriage. Mind you, he planted the seed of realistic expectations. I still didn't have realistic expectations walking into marriage with you until a couple years into our marriage because I still had that unrealistic expectations. Like, because for me, I didn't walk in that marriage would like make me feel loved, but I definitely was in the midst of marriage trying to be a better man for you. But I also was always in the back of my mind fearful that this would end at some point in time, just because I did not feel worthy of the actual love. So instead of like me being like marriage will make me feel loved, it was more like I'm fearful that I'm gonna prove that I'm worthy of love. If that makes sense.
So before you got married, you had high hopes that marriage would fix you.
Yes.
Ooh. I think a lot of people probably have that thought. Like everything will be fine when I get married. Like when I find my husband or when I find my spouse, like everything will be fine.
Yeah, I thought, the lust I had will be gone, my addictions will be taken care of, all the other stuff too. Because obviously, if I have a spouse, why do I need to be involved in this stuff anymore? But what I learned though was that the problems that you have that you bring in, like the trauma that you bring into your marriage, is not going to just mysteriously disappear because you didn't confront it. So it's going to still be within your marriage, something you have to deal with. But the thing is, now you brought somebody else into the midst of it. Not that I'm saying that if you have any type of trauma or issues that you shouldn't get married. Like, I'm just saying, like, you have to not think that marriage will be the thing that'll fix it for you. You still have to confront it and give it to Jesus and allow Jesus in therapy to allow you to overcome it.
Yeah, marriage doesn't, it's not the end all be all, I think.
No.
It's not going to end your problem.
No. You got to take it to the counselor, the wonderful counselor, the great healer, so that way he can take it from you and give you peace and allow you to actually be healed.
Yeah. I think marriage is like almost like money. Like, you know how people say more money, more problems, or I think it's just the idea that the more money you get, money and fame just magnifies a person's character or a person's flaws influence. Or their issues.
It's just influence. Oh, sorry.
So like if you get married, I think it's the same way. Like the issues that you had as a single person, when you get married, are probably more often still gonna be there.
Right.
Like you're still just gonna have to keep working on them, except now you have to keep working on them in the context of this new relationship.
Right.
Which can be harder, I think.
Yeah.
Like what I can definitely say is about that and then I'll talk about what my expectations were. But I can definitely say I realized that I knew I was kind of a type A, kind of control freak type of person, but I don't think I realized it until I got married. Like, I don't think I realized, like, I knew that, okay, I kind of grew up like an only child because my sister was so many years older than me.
Right.
So I didn't really like sharing. Like, spending long hours and amounts of time with another person was not things I wanted to do. So then I got married and I was like, oh, wow. This is a lot of time with another human being. And he's in my space all the time.
It probably also didn't help that I'm the type of person to like invade personal space.
Yeah. So, well, I chose you.
You did.
I picked you. So I think that was the one thing that I was like, oh, this is getting married made me realize how, I guess, internal I am, but also how much I am an introvert, how much space I really do need. But anyway, I think I was more like you, at least the part that you said about how your expectation, like you thought something in you thought that if you got married it wouldn't last. I think that was more of my expectations before, as a single. Like, even before I met you, I was very much like I had low expectations, or maybe even no expectations before getting married. I really just, like you, from watching other people and from observing and looking at other people's relationships, I just thought, ew, that doesn't look very fun. Like, they fight a lot, they argue, they don't. And I think we talked about this last time. Like, they don't really seem like they like each other sometimes. Like, I didn't understand why people would struggle so hard for love. And to me, it wasn't attractive. And so I really came into, like, when I met you and I realized, oh, maybe this isn't so bad. Like, maybe relationships aren't so bad. Or maybe I will choose to struggle with you. I don't know. I don't know what I thought that all of a sudden really was like, oh, I'm going to marry him. Because I didn't want to be married for years. Like, up until, and you know how most little girls dream of their wedding day and they plan for their weddings and their wedding dress and all that stuff. I was not that little girl at all. My Barbies did not play wedding. In fact, I had two Kens and they both lived with Barbie. I don't know what was happening there, but yeah, that was me growing up. And then I met you, and I think for me it was like, oh, maybe this marriage or this thing will be fine. Like, it won't turn out that way. So my expectations were quite low.
It's actually interesting that you say that. You had two kids with Barbie, because I remember you having the conversation when we talked about how like you envisioned yourself being famous and like other people in Hollywood and really just being all over the place.
I was gonna be out here in
how
these
you was not gonna get married, but you was gonna be like just player style out there.
I was gonna
So
be
it's interesting that you were already kind of playing that out with your dolls.
I was low expectations for marriage. Yeah, I didn't think marriage was necessary, and the Lord did a work, because when I did, like, it almost worked out for me, because when I did get married, I was almost like pleasantly surprised. Because first of all, I was already nervous about moving in with you because we didn't live together before we were married.
Right.
So I was nervous about moving in with you and sharing so much time and space with you, even though I knew before we spent a lot of time together. So I was like, oh, it'll probably be fine, but I don't know, because this is like marriage. And you know what they say, once you get married, like, things change and, everything becomes different. And that was probably my concern was, oh, are things going to change for the worse when we get married?
Right.
And I think a lot of people in some circles, especially people who don't want to get married or maybe have a fear of getting married, like, those unrealistic expectations can also hinder marriage.
Right.
They can hinder you from getting married.
Right.
Especially if God has called you to this person.
Right.
And even when I think about that now, I think about when I met you and I was still wrestling with some of those ideas about marriage and those negative perceptions of marriage. And I almost didn't, this almost didn't even happen.
Yeah.
Because I was still in that cycle and in that mindset of, I don't know, like relationships seem hard and marriage seems hard. Like I don't even know, but really deep down, I started to know at that point that that was where God was taking me. Like I knew His plan for me was gonna be marriage because honestly, I was just such a terrible dater.
Yeah.
Like I was terrible at dating. I was eternally single, but I'm glad that I was able to push past that perception and actually
I'm glad too.
give you a second date.
I'm glad too.
Because I almost didn't give you a second date. I was like, I don't feel like all of this. This is work. I didn't want to do it. But I agreed. And do you know, I think that's what people do in marriage too. Like when they get married and they realize, oh, this is work.
They quit.
Like I don't feel like all of this
They
today.
quit. They quit.
Unfortunately.
And I mean, there's different levels of quitting there. You have like actual, like full on commitment quit,
Yeah.
like divorce. And then you have those who like, they don't get divorced, but they quit on trying.
It's called quiet quitting.
I guess.
When you
mentally.
You're present, but you're not present.
Yeah, I'm mentally quitting.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that too. But I think at the end of the day, it's really one of those things where you have to kind of like, you have to stay engaged. I think one of the biggest things for me is I didn't realize just how much like you still have to continue to fight.
Oh.
Like even more because I think I realized, I think somebody said it before, like the actual true spiritual fight doesn't start till you get married. Because like the enemy hates marriage so much that the actual beginning of your fight starts with once you get married. Because it's like you got some fights.
That's good.
You got some fights in your spiritual life, in your singlehood. But it's really one of those things where it's like, I almost feel like the enemy attacks you in your singlehood to make you so damaged that you don't want to get married or you don't feel you're worthy of being married. So that way you won't actually take the step to be married.
Or by the time you do, or maybe even the opposite, like you so desperately feel like marriage is a solution to your singleness and your issues with singleness that you, yeah, once you do get married, you don't realize you still need to work on those things. You know?
Or do you think it's like the unrealistic expectations is a plot of the enemy to allow us to get into the point where we get married and then we get a divorce?
Yeah, well, first of all, yes, because the enemy doesn't like marriage. Marriage is the first institution that God created between human beings.
Right.
So, and God called it good.
Right.
So the enemy obviously is like, no, that's not good. That's bad. And I think I saw something earlier this week that said that Satan's plan is his biggest, I guess, asset is delusion. Mm-hmm. Like he likes to confuse and to present illusion.
Right.
So by giving us, or maybe not giving us, maybe that's giving Satan too much credit, but by stirring up these unrealistic expectations and ideals, we're believing the illusion or the delusion over the reality of marriage.
The illusion that sowing your wild oats and being with multiple partners is so much better than being with one person that's set aside for you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's plenty illusions presented out there in the world, in society, that make marriage look like the worst option or the less attractive option. But I also think that even the spirit of comparison, like if you are married and you look at other people's marriages and you say my marriage doesn't look like that, you're setting those unrealistic expectations for your marriage. When why does your marriage need to look like that couple's marriage when you are not that couple?
Right.
You two are not those two. Right. So your marriage is not going to be on their level. Right. It's not going to be their marriage.
The soil is not the same. So the fruit that's born is not the same, nor are you in the same season as they are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's just not. And I think that's really where a lot of married couples are, especially in this social media age. Like it's so easy to click on your screen and go see what other people are doing and relationship goals and all this stuff. No, like you don't have to be trying to be like other people's marriage because you're never gonna be those other people.
Yeah,
that's unrealistic. That's the work of Satan.
I think the best thing you can do is to dig into the Word, see what the truth and what He is calling for the ideals of what the actual marriage should look like. Because I mean, you have Paul talks about it as far as like Christ being, married to the church and how He loves the church and how He sacrificed for the church, and husbands be as Christ was for the church, and then wives love your husbands in such a way and respect, and husbands, treat your wives with respect as well. Otherwise, God will hear your prayers.
Yeah.
Those different things as far as within that. It's like not mandates, but definitely like expectations for guidelines for like boundaries for how you should actually live out your life in marriage, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like with that you're gonna have a different viewpoint on how that may look like in different people's marriages from an outside perspective, but inwardly they're all founded on the same foundation.
Yeah.
And so as long as the foundation is rooted on the word of God, I think that'll be the strongest expectations realistically that you can set up for yourself.
That's the only guideline you really need to meet.
Yeah.
Or at least that was the mandate.
Yeah.
Right? That was the that's the thing. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Wives, submit to your husband. Like I think those are the two things we just really can't get away from.
Right. But I think too,
it looks different, like you said.
It does look different, but I think we also have to understand what those words actually mean and like dig into it, because I think a lot of times people like don't understand what it means when it says husbands love your wives as Christ loves the church. A lot of people don't understand when it comes to like wives submit yourselves to your husbands. But the thing is also too, because it's like one of those things like what does submission really mean? In which case it's like, okay, understanding like Paul in that same chapter I think also calls the husbands and the wives as co-heirs. So it's like obviously what that means then is it's like as the head of the household, you don't dominate your wife. Like you are co-heirs and you are co-rulers of that domain that God has placed you as rulers of.
Sure.
And so as the head, I'm only responsible to be answerable to God for the decisions on what we actually do, but we make decisions together. And so in that, it's like I look and I see based off of the total input and the total discussions that we have together, and I make a decision that's rightful to us. And I'm held accountable to God for that.
Ooh,
and I'm held accountable to God for that even more because I have to sacrifice my own personal will and desires, just as Christ did for the church.
Yeah.
So it's a dichotomy that I think is very interesting. But at the end of the day, it's all about submission to God. Like I submit to God
first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you only submit to me because I submit to God. So really what you're doing at the end of the day is you're submitting to God's will through me.
Yep.
Because it's not my will you're submitting to, because I'm submitting to God's will.
Do you know that scripture? Now that you say that, this is what I was going to say when you said it. Because I was actually reading that scripture the other day, and it said, "Wives, submit to your husbands as is fitting to the Lord."
Yes.
Like that's the
yes.
The rest of that scripture
is that whole thing. But people,
because if it ain't fitting, if he ain't submitting to God, do you really? Is it necessary for the wife to submit to the husband if he's not submitting to God? Like I think that's a whole nother live and a whole nother conversation to have. But I think that's also very important to submit, especially under your husband and under God. It's got to be both.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's important.
I have one last question.
Let's go.
Because I think we have more questions, but at this point,
I think we've said
we said a lot. I'm almost done talking because my voice starting to feel a little.
I was coughing earlier, so.
But I do want to ask this one question. I think. What do you think? We should ask the newlywed question.
Sure.
Or the other one.
Because
I think you already answered. How can we keep our own expectations realistic? So, what advice would you give to people who are newly married or maybe soon to be married? Oh, you did kind of. Well,
I mean, you can say your answer for that because I kind of said what I thought.
What advice? Sure.
What advice can we give to newlyweds to set realistic expectations for their marriage? I said, as together as a couple, dig into the Word so that way you can found your relationship upon the Word of God. Be that rock. Jesus be that rock. Your house can be the house of your marriage can be rooted on the rock.
Built upon the rock.
So that when the storms come, the house of your marriage won't be torn down.
That's great. Solid foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would say the best thing for people who are about to be married or even like newlyweds or even people who are maybe just married but like dealing with unrealistic expectations, I would say the best thing to do to create realistic expectations is to communicate. I
was just about to say it because I thought about it before you even said it, and I was like, oh yeah, communicate.
Because often my expectations are unrealistic because I haven't communicated them to you.
You don't know what I want.
Like you don't know what I want because I haven't told you what I wanted. I think that's like one of the bigger issues when it comes to being married, is that we don't communicate our expectations. You don't really know if what you're thinking is unrealistic until the other person says, I can't do that for you.
Right. Right. It's better to have that conversation about, hey, these are the things that I'm expecting in marriage, and know that this person is saying that's not something I plan to or I want to actually do.
Yeah.
So that way you can make a decision on if you want to get married to this person or not.
Yeah.
And not have the
Or
expectation
stay married.
or have this expectation that they're going to change. Like just being like, okay, cool, this is like,
that's it, yeah.
These are the expectations on what they will be able to actually do or willing to do. This doesn't meet my expectations at all and what I see in a wife. Lord, maybe there's somebody else for me. Versus getting into it and then being completely disappointed because none of your expectations are met in marriage. But also sometimes too, it's like maybe after you've had that conversation, maybe you evaluate to yourself based on the word of God, if my expectations are rooted in worldly expectations or worldly thoughts or biblical worldview, in which case maybe I need to look back at myself and say, am I being fleshly in my expectations and not?
Can I tell on you?
Go ahead.
Were you done?
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to tell on you really quick. You all right with me telling on you?
So go ahead.
I do a little bit, but you telling yourself. So, and I think you had talked about this earlier today, not on the live, but I think you realized that your expectations for our sex life were a little unrealistic when we got married.
Yeah.
Like, I think you thought that it was going to be sex all the time, every day, whenever you wanted it. Like, I was never going to be tired or get tired, or we were going to have time.
I did not realize that first off, sex was as tiring as it is.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that I had to kill that expectation. I was like, oh no, that's not going to be happening all the time. It's not going to be happening all the time. That's,
woo, I'm tired.
The boy be lying on them songs talking about they be going all night long and all that stuff like that. Nope.
That's honest. That's transparency for you.
You're talking about no 10, 12 hours and all kind of nonsense.
Let me get some sleep. Let me sleep, please. But yeah, and I think I forget where I was going with that. I don't know what my purpose for telling on you
back spasms and stuff.
But you be an extra.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, I think that's true, and I think we talked about it, and that was how we were able to discover: is this realistic or is this based on like worldly stuff that you've been watching on TV?
Yep.
Like, is this realistic? Do you really think this is what our marriage is going to look like?
Expectations from songs.
Where's the time?
From movies and from porn.
Yeah. But we had to talk about it in order to get there.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a difficult conversation, but we did it. No, we actually ended up going to marriage counseling to work through some of that. Well, there you go. That's the benefits of marriage counseling if you're interested, But yeah, I think I answered the question, right? Okay. Are you all right?
I'm good.
You feel good?
I am completely fine.
You got anything else?
I have no problems telling on myself or that my bit. Like, we are transparent.
I was gonna say we're literally in the business of being transparent.
It's all good. But I think we're good today.
Yeah, I feel good.
Anything else you want to add to the peoples?
No, I want to say God bless you guys. I love you guys. I hope you all are living your best Christian life. I don't even know what that means. I just want everybody to be well. I want to see marriages be blessed.
Yes.
Because the enemy doesn't want to. And it's so apparent in the world. That's all.
Awesome.
God bless you. God bless your marriage, your upcoming marriage, your if you want to be married, God bless you and your dreams. Even if it's not your desire to be married.
Yes.
That's okay too. Not everybody's meant to be married.
Paul said those who choose
better not to be married is what he said.
He did actually say it's better
not to be married. It's better not to be married.
He didn't say it because
you
marriage
don't have
is bad.
To be consumed with family matters.
It's better not to be married so that way you can be focused on the things of God. Because if you get married, then your attention and focus will be split.
Family matters,
Which he basically was pointing out that single people and married people both have a purpose and a place in the kingdom. Like, single people can accomplish a lot because they're not as focused on marriage. Marriage people can accomplish a lot because it's two coming together and focused on a purpose that God has purposed them for.
Yeah.
So each has their purpose. But if you feel like you're being called to singlehood, God bless you. I thought I was being called to singlehood until God said, no, you are not. Get you married because you are You are saying you want to be single, but you are lying because you are being
out here being lustful.
Yes. So he said, "Let me give
I
you."
don't know what I thought God had called me to. The streets. I don't know. The type of person I thought I was gonna be, I'm grateful that I'm not. But I don't know. I had a whole different life set up for myself.
You thought you was called to the street.
I thought I was gonna be Barbie with the toucans.
And then the Lord said, "No."
Literally, that was not working out at all. Not at all. Troublesome. Anywho.
Well, we love you guys. We'll see y'all later in the next one.
Be blessed. Have a happy Friday.
Later.